Musically, a lot of what I think would have gone into The Cure, I put into the Banshees, which left.
Why did one of alternative rock's most tortured icons secretly despise some of the biggest names in music? In a world where eyeliner was as important as emotion and authenticity meant everything, Robert Smith, the enigmatic genius behind The Cure, wasn't just creating gothic anthems. He was quietly building a blacklist. While millions swayed to the haunting beauty of Pictures of You and Lullaby, Smith was watching his peers rise in fame with a kind of rage masked behind smudged lipstick and tangled hair. To him, some artists weren't artists at all, but carefully packaged products. From whispered insults at industry events to sharply worded interviews, Smith's hidden rivalries reveal a man obsessed with real emotion, and absolutely unforgiving toward those he believed had sold theirs. This is the story of 6 legendary artists who, according to insiders, earned the unfiltered disdain of the Gothic king himself. And trust us, some of these names will shock you.
I think I know whose opinion I value, and there's also a few people that do what I do, whose opinion I value. So once it gets to the point, I think I'm ready for them.
Robert Smith was never just another frontman in eyeliner. He was a walking contradiction. With his tangled black hair, smeared red lips, and mournful stare, he didn't just play the part of the wounded romantic, he lived it. As the lead singer of The Cure, Smith became the reluctant voice of a generation aching for something deeper than dance floor hits and glossy pop hooks. His songs bled vulnerability, mixing poetry with existential despair in a way that felt almost too raw for the mainstream. But as the 80s music scene grew shinier and more image-driven, Smith began to notice something that disturbed him deeply. The industry wasn't celebrating pain. It was selling it. While he agonized over every lyric, others were packaging sadness like it was a perfume. To Smith, that was more than disingenuous. It was sacrilege. And when he sensed that an artist had traded authenticity for applause, he didn't stay quiet. He sharpened his words like knives. That's how the grudges began. Number 6. Morrissey. Of all the strange feuds in alternative music, few were as unexpected, or as poetic, as the icy tension between Robert Smith and Morrissey. On paper, they seemed like soulmates, 2 brooding Brits with melancholic lyrics and cult-like fanbases. But according to those close to Smith, that similarity was exactly what fueled the fire. Behind closed doors, Smith reportedly bristled whenever critics lumped him in with the "Smith is dramatic" frontman. "He's not sad," Smith once muttered to bandmates after watching a Morrissey performance. "He's just performing sadness for people who've never felt real pain." To Smith, there was a difference between being tortured and looking tortured, and Morrissey, in his view, had mastered the latter. Their silent war reached boiling point in the late 80s when both artists were being called the kings of gloom by the press. Smith hated it. He reportedly went so far as to tell friends, "I don't need to compete with someone who treats depression like a costume." Morrissey, never one to back down, later made jabs at fake goths in interviews. But fans knew exactly who he meant. What could have been a dark dream duo became a bitter mirror, each artist staring at the reflection of everything they didn't want to be. Number 5. Duran. If Robert Smith had a personal nightmare, it might have looked a lot like Duran. Flashy suits, model girlfriends, and music videos that looked more like cologne commercials than artistic statements. Everything about them seemed engineered for the cover of a glossy magazine. And Smith hated it. It wasn't just about the music. It was about the message. According to Cure bassist Simon Gallup, Smith once watched a Duran video and muttered, "They've turned music into a fashion show." It wasn't jealousy. The Cure had their own loyal following. It was disgust. Smith had clawed his way through the darkness of his own psyche to write songs like Faith and 100 Years, while Duran, in his view, were out here making bubblegum pop with a designer wardrobe. Some bands make music, Smith told Melody Maker in 1984, "Others make lifestyle accessories." That comment, fans believe, was aimed squarely at the Duran boys. The tension only grew as both bands vied for space on MTV. At an industry event, Smith reportedly refused to take a photo with Simon Le Bon, telling his manager, "I won't be used as a prop in their marketing campaign." Le Bon, to his credit, seemed unaware of the frostiness and even called The Cure brilliantly moody. But the damage was done. In Smith's eyes, Duran Duran weren't artists. They were mannequins playing dress-up with the soul of rock. Number 4. Billy Idol. To Robert Smith, punk wasn't just a sound, it was a state of mind. It was raw, unfiltered rebellion against conformity. And that's why seeing Billy Idol's peroxide hair and leather sneer plastered all over MTV felt like betrayal. Idol, who had once shared the underground London punk scene with Smith, had transformed into a rock and roll caricature. According to insiders, Smith was livid. He's turned rebellion into a cartoon. He allegedly scoffed after watching a White Wedding performance. Smith believed that Idol had taken the sacred energy of punk, the frustration, the truth, the danger, and sold it for record deals and primetime fame. He didn't just see Idol as a sellout, he saw him as the gravedigger of punk's corpse.
While Smith continued channeling darkness into the curse-haunting landscapes, Idol was strutting around as the poster boy for punk light. "Real punk comes from desperation, not from a marketing team," Smith told Zigzag magazine in 1982, in what many recognized as a thinly veiled dig. The final straw reportedly came when Idol's Rebel Yell video played during a London club night. Smith walked out without a word. To the Gothic Prince, Billy Idol wasn't just an insult to punk. He was its eulogy.
Number 3. Madonna. If there was ever a feud rooted more in philosophy than genre, it was this one. Robert Smith versus Madonna wasn't about guitars versus synths, it was about truth versus ambition. While Madonna was rising as the queen of pop, building a global empire on image reinvention and PR strategy, Smith saw something he couldn't stomach. Watching her Material Girl video, Smith reportedly told his bandmates, "She's everything that's wrong with music." Pure ambition dressed up as art. In Smith's world, music was sacred. It came from a place of pain, of bleeding honesty, but Madonna, he believed, had taken emotion and replaced it with marketing. She was the antithesis of everything he stood for. Art should be about truth, not about becoming famous, Smith told The Face in 1986. The Cold War between them intensified at an award show in 1987. Smith allegedly made a point of avoiding Madonna's table altogether, telling a colleague afterward, "I don't associate with people who treat their soul like a brand." And while Madonna may have seen herself as a pioneer, Smith viewed her as a cautionary tale. How fame could hollow out even the most powerful expressions of humanity. Number 2. George Michael. There was something deeply personal about Robert Smith's disdain for George Michael. Unlike his other feuds, this one wasn't just ideological. It felt intimate, like a wound. Smith reportedly first rolled his eyes during the Wham! Years, but when Michael went solo and Careless Whisper became an international sensation, the disgust grew into something darker. He's taken real heartbreak and turned it into elevator music, Smith allegedly told music journalist John Savage. To Smith, love songs were supposed to hurt. They were supposed to bleed, but Michael's Heartbreak, with its velvet delivery and studio gloss, sounded to Smith like heartbreak with a focus group. Love songs should leave scars, not make you feel comfortable, he told Select magazine in 1990. The bitterness only deepened when both artists were publicly grappling with romantic struggles. At a 1991 industry party, Smith reportedly refused to shake Michael's hand, telling his manager, "I won't shake hands with someone who prostitutes real emotion." Michael, always the gentleman, later expressed admiration for the Cure's authenticity. But Smith's silence said more than words. To him, George Michael's silky vulnerability was just another lie dressed in designer grief. Number 1. Bono, and at the top of Robert Smith's blacklist? Bono, the self-declared savior of rock and roll. The man with the sunglasses, the swagger, and the stadium speeches. Their paths began similarly, both emerging from the rubble of post-punk, both poised to change the world in their own way. But to Smith, that's where the similarities ended. According to former Island Records execs, Smith once saw U2 perform and said, "He thinks he's saving the world, but he's just another rock star with a god complex." What made Smith recoil wasn't U2's music, but Bono's messianic aura. While Smith wrote about inner torment and broken hearts, Bono climbed the stage with political manifestos and moral sermons. At a 1987 festival, the feud hit its boiling point. Witnesses claimed Smith told Bono directly, "Real artists don't need to tell people they're saving them, they just make music that might help." Later, Smith doubled down in a private conversation, saying, "The moment you start believing you're a prophet, you stop being an artist." To Smith, Bono had crossed the line, from musician to manufactured messiah. And once you cross that line, in Robert Smith's world, there's no coming back. So what do you think? Was Robert Smith the last honest man in a music industry full of actors?
Or was he just a brooding genius too sensitive for the spotlight? Did these feuds stem from integrity or insecurity? We want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with Smith's brutal standards, or do you think some of these artists got unfairly judged? Don't forget to hit like if this story gave you chills, and share it with a friend who lives in eyeliner and nostalgia.
For more rock legends, behind-the-scenes rivalries, and stories too dark for the liner notes, subscribe now to Rock Fame Diaries. We're peeling back the velvet curtain and telling the stories no one else dares. Until next time, stay loud, stay strange, and always keep it real. God bless.